Hi, everyone.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to our monthly webinar. So tonight
Uh,
we have the pleasure to have Dana Trentini with us. She is also
Woohoo! I'm
yes,
so
yay,
excited.
yay! We're so lucky. And Dana is also on the board of Hashimoto's Awareness. We're blessed to have her presence. And
Yes.
for those of you that don't know Dana, and I don't think there's many of you, but just in case, let me give you a few words on her bio. Dana Trentini is the founder of the award-winning thyroid advocacy blog, the hypothyroidmom.com, which has over 2 million monthly page views from 223 countries and regions in the world. Her hypothyroid mom Facebook page has over 1 million likes. Dana has been featured in the Atlantic and the Wall Street Journal. And together with Mary Shulman, Dana wrote her book, Your Wealthy Pregnancy with Thyroid Disease. It's a guide to fertility, pregnancy, and postpartum wellness. It will be released in June. It was released in June 2016. And so, in a nutshell, that's our Dana. Welcome.
Oh my gosh, we are so honored to have Dana Trentini with us, you guys. She is, oh my gosh, one of the best and one of the greats. So we wanted to just give you a little bit of the lowdown of how the webinars kind of work if you haven't joined us before. So first of all, this is our second live webinar that we've had, and we're really excited to have each and every one of you here. As an attendee to this webinar, your microphone and camera will be turned off. So if you have a question, you can type it in the questions box on your control panel. And we want to be really clear on this. It's the question box. You can ask questions throughout the duration of the webinar. And if you want to remain anonymous, just please type that on the end of your question for us. There's a few features that we want to share with you. The first one is hand raising. This button is to let us know you're with us. So, we might ask the audience for a show of hands during this webinar. And so just give it a try now and just click that little hand icon in your viewer to raise and lower your hand. So I'll just have you give you a minute to try that. Okay, great, awesome. People are getting that. Perfect. So yeah, that's how you raise your hand, just to kind of do a show of hands if we ask a certain question. Another thing is we're going to be doing polls this evening, which we're super excited. We didn't do it last time, but Dana was really excited about them, and we were like really excited. So basically what that's going to look like on your screen is it's going to show up just like it's just going to pop up with a question, and then it'll be a multiple choice, and you just choose your answer. You just click on it, and then we'll get to see your answers, and then we'll talk a little bit about that after. So just again, the polls will just kind of come up periodically throughout Dana's talk, and we'll let you know about them before they start. And then what else? I think that's about it. We're super excited to have you guys, and of course Dana.
So in a minute, we're going to take our camera off, me and myself and Pearl, and Dana will have the whole space for her lecture, and then Pearl and I will just monitoring and take questions, and we'll keep you posted of everything.
And
So
enjoy!
enjoy.
Okay, we'll see you soon.
So I'm so excited to be here. You know, when Pearl and Fabienne asked me to do this, this is like right up my alley. I worked for 10 years for a human resources group in New York City, and I created corporate training programs. I delivered corporate training online, in person, created, designed them, and so like this is was just too perfect for me. So of course I'm going to be here. I want to change it up. I don't want to make it a really boring lecture, so I'm going to break it up into pieces. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm going to break it up with polls and hands up questions. The first major section is going to be about those embarrassing symptoms that nobody talks about. Why doesn't anybody talk about them? They're too embarrassing. The doctors aren't talking about them because many of the doctors don't have those symptoms. So they're not really talking about it, but we're going to talk about what the symptoms are that maybe you haven't felt comfortable to share. And hey, I'm the woman who's like an open book, willing to discuss anything, so I'm the perfect person for this. The second part will be about the treatments that you never hear about. You never hear about them. There's only one treatment method, but you don't know about all the others. And so we're going to talk about all of those. But before I start, I want to tell you a little bit about me. You know, a lot of people say, why did you create Hypothyroid Mom? Are you like a blogger? Do you like technology? Are you a social media girl? I did not have a Facebook account before Hypothyroid Mom. I had no personal Facebook account. I didn't have any idea what Google Plus was. Twitter was a whole other language. What was Pinterest? I wanted to know what the heck is Pinterest. So I was the last person that should ever start a blog, start something technology related. But to tell you the truth, why did I start it? I was pissed. I was enraged. And that was why I created Hypothyroid Mom. I was angry. So I got to take you back to the beginning of my story. I believe that I've had hypothyroidism my whole life. I don't think I'm the only one. I think many of you watching have had it your whole life. Perhaps it started at puberty, perhaps it started in your 20s, in your 30s, and no one noticed. No one knew, oh God, let's check her thyroid. Those symptoms all kind of add up. No one was thinking about it, especially if you're a child, especially if you're a teenager. No one is thinking to test your thyroid, but I believe I've had it my whole life. I had my first son, Benjamin, in 2006. And I remember I had him, and you know, everyone says, you're going to be the super mom. I was like a New York City, you know, Wall Street worker. I was going to go back in action. I was going to be top of my game again. I was going to do everything I used to do. I was going to be a super mom who could do everything. And then the whole world crashed down all around me that I had struggled to keep my eyes open. I saw all the moms with their strollers. They're pushing those strollers to the park. And I was like, oh my God, I need a little bit more rest. I'd fall asleep with Lego marks. I'd land on the Lego. The Lego marks, I'd wake up and Lego marks pressed against my forehead. I would fall asleep everywhere. My back was arched like this. Like I was like a 90-year-old woman. Well, it turned out I landed in the emergency room with kidney stones, and I had this really bright doctor that said, you just don't add up. I was 36 years old, and you don't add up. I don't know why you have kidney stones. So he did a thorough test, and I discovered I had hypothyroidism. I was put on a T4 only levothyroxine drug. I had tried Synthroid. I tried various T4 brands. I didn't know that my unwellness was because I was not well treated. I just thought I must be a new mom. That's what my doctors kept telling me. I must be just a new mom. I'm getting old, I guess, and that's why I've got clots in my menstrual cycles. My hair is falling out. I have severe constipation. I have severe brain fog. I couldn't go back to my normal job because I couldn't function. I couldn't stay awake. I couldn't go to sleep either. I couldn't sleep, and I couldn't stay awake, and I couldn't go to bed. I was just a ball of fire. You know, I had anxiety. I felt like my mind was on a trampoline. You know, I had mood swings, and I had like shaking. And I thought, what the hell is going on with me? I got a little better, but not quite. I had numbness in my legs. My legs were tingling. I would be shaving my legs, and I couldn't feel my legs. I'd say to the doctor, this is just so weird. I had high cholesterol. He was going to put me on statin drugs. I had high blood sugar. All of a sudden, I was pre-diabetic. How the heck in a few months did I become like the living dead? So I got as well as I could, but I still wasn't well. I got pregnant again. It was late 2008. I remember it like it was yesterday. I got pregnant, and an unwellness took over me, like a toxicity. I did not feel well, and I would go and I would complain and I would complain. I said, I don't feel good. I don't feel good. They said, you are pregnant. You're just pregnant. But I knew there was, I would say out loud to family members, there's toxicity in my body. Something's not right. My symptoms were raging, but everything, according to my doctors, was fine. They had awards on the walls. They were from Ivy League universities. And so I just had to be quiet, because what did I know? I miscarried. I miscarried in early 2009. I decided that's it. I've had enough. I got to figure out what the heck is going on with me. I had been the team leader of a research team at Columbia University. I said, you know what? I'm going to research my way out of here. I discovered the Endocrine Society's guidelines for pregnancy in 2007 recommended a TSH of less than 2.5 for hypothyroid women in their first trimester. Mine was at near 10 with raging freaking symptoms. And no one had read the guidelines. Not my OBGYN, not my family doctor, no one. And so I started Hypothyroid Mom. And I learned all I could about Facebook, learned my new language on Twitter, figured out how to start Pinterest. And now I'm, in so many people's offices and living rooms on their computers. And I know that my child watches over me because I created it in memory of my child. If I couldn't help my child, I was going to help other women and their babies so that that didn't happen ever again. And so here I am. I'd love to start my first poll question. Pearl and Fabienne. That's exactly what I thought. I was the one at The Walking Dead. I see a lot of you are, yes, I'm tired, but it's not serious. And this is a really important thing for me. Fatigue is the hallmark symptom of hypothyroidism. If you wonder, how do you know, you've got friends and family, fatigue, we all have the fatigue. The rest of the symptoms were also individual, I might have, constipation, but someone else might not. I might have miscarriages and someone else does not. But the fatigue is the one that we're all struggling with at some level. And what's really important for you to understand is that we're all at a different part of the continuum, right? Some of us fell down a dark hole that we're worried we'll never get back up. We're down there, we're the walking dead. And then there are others, they're managing, they're doing okay. And what's really important for me at Hypothyroid Mom is to recognize we're all on that continuum. I was down there in a dark hole. I was in a dark hole. I worried I would never be the person that I ever was before. I didn't know how I was ever going to manage, how I was ever going to get my career back on track. What was I going to do? And so it's so important to be sympathetic that we're all in a different part and we're all at a different point in our treatment. Some of us feel fantastic. I am going to be 47 years old in a couple months and I feel fantastic. I feel better at 47 years old than I ever did at 20 or 30. I have to say, I really do. So that's such an important thing for me is that we're all individual. So now I'm going to talk about some of the really embarrassing symptoms. And you're going to say, but I don't have all of them. But that's the point, is that we're all going to have a different constellation of symptoms. And so I wonder if that's what makes it so tricky to get diagnosed. Part of it is that we're this walking, talking signs of hypothyroidism, but doctors kind of overlook us. They send us to the constipation aisle. They send us for hair loss tonics. They send us for, fertility clinics. They send us everywhere except to check your thyroid and to do it fully. Now, before I begin, this is Hashimoto's Awareness, and I'm so excited to be here because Hashimoto's is the #1 cause of hypothyroidism, but few people know it. Do you know how many people come to Hypothyroid Mom? They have no idea they have Hashimoto's because all they've been told is that they have hypothyroidism. Their TSH has been tested, and that's it. That's all they know. And then I'm there saying you need to get your 2 thyroid antibodies tested, your thyroid peroxidase antibodies and your thyroid globulin antibodies. Do you have any idea in the 4 years I've been doing this, how many people email me and comment, I just discovered I have Hashimoto's because of Hypothyroid Mom. Like, blows my mind. Blows my mind. That's incredible. Like, once you know you have an autoimmune disease like Hashimoto's, that's only beginning. That's the only way you can figure out how to treat yourself is, okay, now I get it. I have an autoimmune disease, and now I can figure out how to quell, how to, stop the immune action in my body. But if you don't know you have it, you're not going to find out. So the 5 tests, the 6 tests I recommend everyone have. I always omit the TSH because honestly, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But because this TSH, it doesn't give a full picture. You need the free T4, the free T3, the reverse T3, the thyroid peroxidase antibodies, and the thyroid globulin antibodies if you have hypothyroidism symptoms. Now, what are some of the symptoms? So fatigue is like one of the big ones. But what about digestion? Really, the constipation. Have you ever looked at the aisle for digestion issues? The gas, the belching, the IBS, the constipation. Have you ever looked at how many different brands and different products there are? Well, guess what? They say there are up to 750 million thyroid sufferers in the world. Most of them have hypothyroidism, and half of them don't even know they have it. So they're in those drugstore aisles, checking the digestive enzymes, getting their constipation medicines, getting their IBS and the belching and the acid reflux, and they have no idea that their thyroid is a problem. Hair loss. Okay, the hair loss is serious. Now, this is coming from the girl with tons of hair. I was born with tons of hair. Like, thank God, because I could have made a chia pet out of the hair that came out of my head. When my hypothyroidism was at its worst, I could have made a wig for you and you and you and you. Really. I cut off my hair. I cut it to this short, like shaved. Okay? It's taken me all these years to get my hair back because I finally figured out how to manage my hair loss. One is getting optimally treated, but one of the most popular articles at Hypothyroid Mom is the 10 things that stop my thyroid hair loss. I swear. How can we feel good about ourselves if we're bald? Okay, yeah, the hair tonics, I get it. Lots of stuff about hair tonics, vitamins and, things for hair. But what about your thyroid? If thyroid's not working properly, you're not growing your hair. You're not growing your hair. Your body's in fight mode of like, this girl's gonna die. So why am I spending energy on getting blood flow to the hair? This girl has high cholesterol. She has serious things going on. The body knows you are like dying. So your hair is like the last thing that it's worried about. The other part, let's go down to our feet. Have you ever looked at the feet of a hypothyroid person? Have you ever looked at the calluses? Have you ever looked at the deep, deep cuts? Have you ever gotten to the point where they're bleeding? I do Pilates. It's like one of the secrets for me to like be healthy. Do you know how many times I look at the mats, like all the people are, lined up on their mats, and I could see the cracks in their heels. You know how many times I want to go up and say, hey, will you go check your thyroid? Something's up with your feet. But that's pretty embarrassing, right? So I don't do it, but that's a big one. Low libido. Okay, do you know how many people write to me about low libido? This ruins marriages, personal relationships. I mean, divorce. People get divorced. You know how many articles are written about no sex drive? You should leave that person because you're not getting enough sex. You know how many articles I've read like that? And I want to shake someone and say, but what if the person's ill? What about you stick with it. You're married. You took those vows in sickness and in health, and the man's libido drops and we all get divorced. And that's a hard one. I hear from men who are impotent, and there's, vaginal dryness, and there's painful intercourse. And how can that not affect relationships? But the first step is you need to know that this is something physical. You can go as many therapists as you want, how many divorce therapists that you want, but if the issue is it's a physical problem, but a lot of times that's overlooked. Obesity. I mean, how fast do we gain weight? All these commercials about just eat less, exercise more. Yeah, you're going to be like a hamster in a wheel, still gaining weight, eating less and less, dieting and dieting. Why? Because your thyroid regulates your metabolism. So how the heck can you lose weight if your metabolism is thrown off by hypothyroidism? That just pisses me off. What about hives? Hashimoto is one of the most common symptoms, is hives or acne or bad breath or snoring and sleep apnea. I could go on and on. The abnormal menstrual cycles, infertility, miscarriages, stillbirths, preeclampsia, IVF failures, birth defects, increased risk of ADHD and autism in our children, breastfeeding challenges, postpartum depression. Let's go on about the mental health symptoms. Every part of the body, including the brain, needs thyroid hormone for proper functioning. Some of the most devastating, some emails have had my head down on my desk crying. I had a woman who was put in a mental health institution, told she was bipolar, was in a severe state, and it turned out she had Hashimoto's, and then got well. And I kept thinking, how many have depression and bipolar and anxiety and mood swings and ADHD or ADD, schizophrenia, suicidal thoughts? Why are we not looking at the thyroid? That's a big one for me. Pearl and Fabiana, hand up. Question.
All right, let's see here. We have a question come up. It says from Deanna. How young can thyroid issues appear? My mother is hypo and I have Hashi's. My 16-year-old daughter and I wanted to be prepared.
Yeah, this is one of the most common questions I get. I always say to people, there is a hereditary factor to thyroid disease, including Hashimoto's. It's not uncommon to find it running through, if you really look closely at aunts, uncles, grandparents, great-grandparents. I always watch my children for signs, and I encourage all of my hypothyroid mom fans to do that. There's a real hereditary risk to thyroid disease, and you can get it as soon as birth. I mean, there are many that are born with congenital hypothyroidism. If I use myself as an example, I had constipation. I had strange dry flaking skin, and severe constipation and mood swings, and as like a young child. And then I can remember when I was in puberty that it worsened. I can remember it, and I remember the weight fluctuations, but no one ever thought to test me. There are 3 times in a woman's life when she's most vulnerable to develop a thyroid condition. That's puberty, pregnancy, perimenopause, and menopause. When you look at those times in a woman's life, that's when their sex hormones are shifting. So if I would say one thing is, obviously you're going to look at your child for symptoms, but watch them really carefully at puberty, and that goes for the boys. Watch them. As those sex hormones shift, they're so closely connected to the thyroid that they can throw you off balance, and I know I've lived it. Pregnancy did a number on me, including my miscarriage. Both my pregnancies, postpartum was murder for me. It was really bad. And now at 42, I went through perimenopause. I started perimenopause, and again, more shifting. So I guess it was really about watching all the time and being so vigilant, letting your family members know so that they go get tested. My mom and my brother, after I got diagnosed, they both have it also. But it wasn't until I was diagnosed that they pushed for testing. Otherwise, they probably would be undiagnosed, and so would I. I think I was older. I was getting older.
Wow, yeah.
Would you like another question?
Sure.
So we have
you have your video?
yes.
Can you turn on your video? Awesome.
Yes. So we have another question from Lina. And Lina is she asked, should one take a thyroid medication before having a thyroid panel blood test in the morning? It's a good question.
Yeah.
You know, that's a really good, I do not. I do not take my thyroid medication before my blood draw because it can interfere with your results, especially if you take T3 medication, which is so quick reacting. So I do not, and I encourage people to wait. So what I do is I pack it. I always do my blood draw really early in the morning, and I pack it in my purse. And I always go and get water after I do my blood draw, and I pop it. And I always see everyone watching me, right? Like in the waiting room, they're all, but that's exactly what I do. Yeah.
That's good. That's really good information to know. Yeah, that was a great question, Lena.
Yeah, great
question. The question we have is the constipation. So this is from Brandy. The constipation and then diarrhea for 5 days is exhausting. So, I mean, these are the things we don't talk about, first of all. That's why we're here tonight. So, yes.
Who wants to talk about that? I mean, I've had constipation all my life, and I'm going to tell you something. Some of this embarrassing stuff is life-threatening stuff. I mean, at 32 years old, I had lifelong constipation. We're not talking about just now. It's been going on since I was a child. At 32 years old, I had some unusual bleeding. And then I had a family history. My uncle, my father had colon cancer. So I got my first colonoscopy at 32 years old. And I remember people whispering in there, what the heck is she doing here? She looks so young. Because they were all in their 50s, right, and 60s. There I was at 32. Guess what? I had the hugest polyp. He said, do you have any idea if you'd waited to 50, what would happen to that? What would happen to it? You know? So like this embarrassing stuff can really be life-threatening. And so now I make sure to go every single day. You know, I've got my magnesium glycinate at night and my fish oils, my fiber, and I make sure, to me it's life-threatening.
I take my magnesium glycinate at night too, right before bed.
It helps me sleep as well. That's like,
yes.
I was so severely deficient in magnesium. No one had ever told me that. No one had ever tested my magnesium. And that one thing helped me sleep, and it helped my constipation. So amazing how one thing can be so life-changing.
It's great.
We have another question from Leslie. I have malabsorption issue from Hashimoto's. I'm 100% gluten-free and casein-free.
Fabienne, can you repeat it again? I missed the beginning.
So we have a question from Leslie, and Leslie's it's about malabsorptions. And so yes, she says she has Hashimoto. She's 100% gluten and casein-free, and is taking digestive enzymes. And she's asking if you have any other suggestion.
You know, now when we talk about the ones that mainstream doctors don't ever tell you about, so I have had very severe nutrient deficiencies, and vitamins just didn't do it for me. And I knew it because it was going on, and no matter how much I would take, my body just wasn't absorbing it. I've begun to take IVs. I go to a naturopath, and I have a cocktail of nutrients that I'm deficient in. He did like really thorough testing, and has done IVs to do that. I'm not saying that everybody needs to go out and do IVs, but it's something to know about. It's also about investigating the different brands of supplements. To make sure you're doing really high quality ones. So at Hypothyroid Mom, whenever I include a guest post from one of my favorite thyroid experts, thyroid doctors, I always ask them, what's your favorite brand? Tell me, because they're not all the same. They're not all great quality. And so I share them at Hypothyroid Mom for that reason, because they're not all great quality. And a lot of them have gluten and dairy, forms in them that you might not know about. But for me, yeah, like the IVs became necessary for certain nutrients.
Here's one from Heather. Heather says, can you list the tests to have done again? I got the free T3 and 4 and the reverse T3, but I did not get the rest of them.
Okay, six, so important, right? TSH,
TSH.
free T4, free T3, reverse T3. Then there are 2 thyroid antibodies for Hashimoto's, which is so important, especially for what we're talking about today. Thyroid peroxidase antibodies and thyroglobulin antibodies. And those 6 are essential, and they're not done. And I include from time to time an optimal range list for these. As examples, many thyroid experts will say a TSH of like around 1. They'll say a free T3 in the top quarter or the top half of the normal range. So you get these ranges, but one thing that I want to get to when we get to what no one tells you about is those ranges really are BS, really, when you really look at it, because we're all so different in where our optimal ranges are, because our bodies, utilize that thyroid hormone that we're taking all so differently. If I went by a TSH of 1, I don't know, I'd be bald. I'd be sitting here bald, because I need a TSH that's very suppressed. I need it near 0. I'm taking natural desiccated thyroid and a compounded Timereleased T3 from a compounding pharmacy, and my wellness is suppressed. My TSH has to be low. My free T3 has to be at the top quarter of the normal range, but since perimenopause, it's shifted. I need to be right at the top. So the most important thing you can do is keep copies of your lab results and write on them. So I began doing this. Write on it. When do you feel good? Notice where in the ranges are you. Do I feel like shit? Write it. I wrote shit. I feel fantastic. I went in and kissed my doctor. I feel freaking fantastic. I wrote fan-fucking-tastic across it. And guess what? That normal, that optimal was perfect for me for years until I went into perimenopause. And then it kind of shifted and I had to figure out my new normal. But knowing where I was great was perfect. As soon as I got a headache, chronic headaches are like the alert for me. As soon as the chronic headache started and the deep fatigue, I knew my free T3 is low, middle of the range. I already knew. She didn't even have to do blood tests. And it would always come out in the middle of the range, and I knew because I was unwell. I had to be at the top quarter.
Since we are in the blood test question, there's another one. What is the optimal reverse T3 number that should be on the blood test?
It's so funny because when we were writing our book, there's so many, there's ratios. If you look up, there's like a reverse T3, free T3 ratio. That's the easiest way to do it. They actually plug it in. But remember, when you do it, do a Google search of reverse T3, free T3 ratio. But when you do it, notice that it will say units of measurement so that you're putting the correct. Look on your lab for the units of measurement. And these ratios, because they exist, like you can actually calculate them. But you just have to be careful that the units are correct. And it'll actually tell you, like, are you in the optimal range or not? And I found that really interesting because my reverse T3 ended up being so very high. And what reverse T3 is that our bodies are supposed to convert T4 into the active T3 thyroid hormone. But what can happen, especially in periods of stress or yo-yo dieting, starvation, extreme cases like that, instead of converting it into the active T3, which our cells need, it can put it into a form of inactive reverse T3. And so even though you're taking your T4 hormone, you still feel unwell because it's not converting to the active T3 that you need. It's converting to the inactive T3, the inactive reverse T3. So what they say is that the adrenal hormones are so important. Your adrenal glands, the hormones, the cortisol levels of your adrenal glands are so important to your thyroid health. So if you've ever looked back at your history of when did this start? When did your thyroid symptoms start? When did they worsen? Was it during a period of stress? Was it during a period of stress? And most doctors are not looking at the reverse T3 and the adrenal glands and doing the saliva testing for cortisol levels. So a lot of us have adrenal stress. We just don't know it. So I include adaptogenic herbs I love including experts, herbologists that come in and they tell me about the herbs for stress and the adaptogens for that. That's essential for me in order to make sure my reverse T3 doesn't get too high. So yeah. So look at that ratio.
Yeah. We're getting a little cut in and out here. Okay, so the next one we found is, this is from Leslie, is the time-released compounded T3 far superior to Cytomel? I'm on 10 mgs of Cytomel.
Yeah, so you know what, the next section I want to talk about the things no one ever tells you, right? No one ever tells you. Well, I'm pretty lucky. As a hypothyroid mom, I get approached by fantastic doctors. I get to see some of the best people ever. And I have learned secrets that nobody ever tells you. Things like not all of us do well on T4 medications. Many of us do well on a combination of T4 and T3, and some do great on T3 only. I need the T4 and the T3. Now, what's the difference? Cytomel is like a fast-release T3 versus what I'm taking is, which is compounded by a specialty compounding pharmacy. It's designed to release slowly through the day. So I take it no later than around 10 a.m. and then it breaks down by the time it's nighttime, otherwise I cannot sleep. Some people do great taking T3 at night, and that's, I'm so happy for them, but I get serious insomnia. So I take my Thyroid, I do half of my Thyroid dose first thing in the morning, then at 10 a.m. I take my time-released T3, then around 2 or 3 p.m. I take the second dose of Thyroid. Some people will do it in 3. So they'll take their Thyroid dosage and do 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Then the idea is to get you through the day, right? We all get that crash, or I used to, I don't anymore, thank God. But you know that crash, the 3 or 4 p.m. crash? Well, this gets me through. It gets me through. So yeah.
So, that's the kind of stuff that's just not talked about very much, about separating it from morning to lunch to like late afternoon, I do the same. I take part in the morning and part after my lunch, and it helps so much.
But a lot of people haven't even been told. And the other thing is, it's really important, before you go and change how you take your medication, you tell your doctor, I'm about to split my dose and do half in the morning and half in the afternoon to make sure, for whatever reason, because we also, another big thing is a lot of other medications that we take interfere with the absorption of them, or other vitamins and supplements can interfere. So really important, discuss it with your doctor. I've even got like timelines for taking painkillers and antidepressants, like how many hours apart from your thyroid medication. You'd be shocked how many things interfere with it, including your caffeine. I used to slurp my coffee and then swallow my Thyroid. I had no idea my coffee was interfering with the absorption. Why does somebody tell me? My calcium fortified orange juice. Why didn't somebody tell me? I was drinking that calcium fortified orange juice along with my Thyroid, and nobody told me. Nobody told me. So important about I wait 3 to 4 hours between any kind of herb, any kind of supplement. I don't care what it is. I just don't. I make sure to keep them hours apart.
Mm-hmm. Very wise. We have a question from Katie.
Yeah, the next one. And then you want to move on to the next section, Dana?
Sure.
You want to take one last question?
That sounds great.
Okay. My 6-year-old granddaughter is having frequent episodes of what she calls stress throat. HeyHashi is strong in my family, and I'm wondering if this is one symptom of intermittent throat tightness should be tested. Conventional medicine says it is psychosomatic, but we don't believe it.
And you know what? You listen to your instincts. God bless you that you're God bless you that you're listening, because I worry about our children. You have no idea. I sometimes will not sleep, and in the middle of the night I'm worrying about other people's children. I think we have to be so vigilant. I mean, your thyroid gland is located at the base of your neck. If she's having some kind of tightness in her throat, or she can't swallow, or she can't take a deep breath, or she's having pain in her throat, why is she not getting a thyroid ultrasound? for thyroid nodules and goiter and inflammation of that gland. Why not? I had to fight with my doctors. I had to fight to get a thyroid ultrasound. I was having some pain in my throat, and they said, well, like, it hasn't been long enough. I looked at them and I said, you're giving me a thyroid ultrasound. You're just giving me a thyroid ultrasound. And then, thank God, I discovered I had half of a thyroid gland missing. And, you know, now, like, looking back, could it have been I was born that way with, like, a partial thyroid, which would explain why I've had symptoms for so long. But yeah, please, please, if your instincts tell you they're shouting at you and you've got a family history, you fight. Fight. Go to 10 doctors till you get somebody who's listening to you and at least rules out all the possibilities, right? Good luck to her. Good luck.
Okay, we're gonna back down and finish up. We'll do some polls.
Great. Fascinating. Really interesting. May I offer a hands up? I don't know if you can hear me, Pearl and Fabienne.
Yes, we can.
If you could ask the people that wrote down T4 only levothyroxine, would you have a hands up of have they ever tried anything? No, actually, ask them how do they feel? Are they feeling well?
They can hear you. They can hear you.
They can hear you. Yeah.
This is a hands up question, everybody. For those of you on T4 only, like Synthroid, thyroxine, I want to know, raise your hand if you feel well. Do you feel well, those of you that are taking it?
Okay, some people are raising their hands. I've got a few here. I'm coming about just under 10.
And ask them now, hands up if you don't feel well taking T4 only.
Okay, guys. Yeah, so do you not feel well?
Do you not feel well on T4 only levothyroxine?
Now raise your hand for that. A lot of hands were going up. A lot of hands going up.
Yeah.
Several. A lot more.
This last part that I want to talk about is just the treatments that no one talks about in mainstream medicine. In medical school, doctors, including endocrinologists, are taught that all you test is TSH and all you give for hypothyroidism is a form of T4 only levothyroxine, whether it's Synthroid or thyroxine or whatever brand. There are various brands of it, and it's great. I hear from people who do well, and I'm so happy for the 10 that are raising their hands. But too many are not well. And if everybody was well on what mainstream medicine was using, why would they be following us? They wouldn't be following us. If they were well, they were, climbing mountains and feeling fantastic and like getting through their day and not having symptoms. There'd be no reason for advocacy because mainstream medicine would have had a solution. So, for all of those that are on a form of medication that they're not well, or they have those symptoms I was describing. Or, you probably have wondered, well, could those symptoms be something else? And yes, not everything is thyroid related, of course. Low libido can be from other things, or constipation can be from other things. But if you have a lot of the symptoms and you're taking a medication, it could be one, it's just the dosage. So having a discussion with your doctor, can we try a different dosage? See how I do? Or can I try a different brand? Or could I be someone who, like hypothyroid mom, who does well on T4 and T3? I'm sure a lot of endocrinologists are not happy about me. No, they hear hypothyroid mom, they're, oh no, not her again. Oh no. But there are resources, 30 online resources to find a great thyroid doctor at Hypothyroid Mom. You've got resources to help you locate a doctor open to full thyroid testing, open to all the thyroid medication options to find what's right for you. And thank God, a lot of wonderful people and a lot of associations have created these directories so you can use them and find great doctors. I know there are great ones out there. You might have to go to 10 of them until you find them, but you can find them. And before our time is up, I just wanted to mention some of the other things that I wanted to mention in case you've never heard of them. So I've already talked about, T3 and compounding pharmacies that do Timereleased T3. I want to talk about the right brand. Just because one brand isn't working for you doesn't mean another brand of T4 might not be the answer. Or some people, I did awful on Armour. So this whole thing about natural desiccated thyroid is the answer. It doesn't mean like one brand's going to be right for everybody. I didn't do well. I just didn't. I do great on Nature Thread, but that doesn't mean everybody's going to do great. There are different brands. Some people say, I do terrible on natural desiccated thyroid. I do fantastic on T4 levothyroxine, or I feel fantastic on a combination of synthetics of thyroxine plus cytomel. I'm like, hallelujah, you found what works for you, and that's all that matters, and finding that right dosage. So just because you're taking it, if you're not taking the right dosage, then that's a deal breaker. And I told you, like, at different stages of your life, as we're aging and our sex hormones are shifting, we might need different dosage. Like, thank God, I went through like 2 years of really hard times. Again, losing my hair because of perimenopause, and then all of a sudden found the optimal dose for me again, so I feel fantastic. So it's kind of like a roller coaster, The other things I want to talk about, I already talked about the ranges suck because we're all different in terms of those ranges, and it's about finding that sweet spot where you feel fantastic, in those ranges. I've mentioned briefly thyroid, adrenal glands, and sex hormones. It's like all three of them are so connected. So in times of extreme stress, your thyroid and your sex hormones can all shift. And during perimenopause, it can shift your thyroid hormones. And in pregnancy, it can shift. So the three pieces have to be looked at all together. When we talk about Hashimoto's, there are so many things to talk about with immune. This is an autoimmune disease. It's not just hypothyroidism. It's not just about taking a thyroid hormone replacement medication. It's about talking about how do we slow down the attack of the immune system? How do we do that? But there's so much great research now. There's so much out there on nutrient deficiencies like selenium and vitamin D and magnesium, and food sensitivities like, could you just be sensitive to gluten? Just because you didn't test positive for celiac doesn't mean you're not sensitive to gluten. Or you could be sensitive to dairy or to nuts or nightshades. You could be sensitive to foods. Heavy metal toxicity, that's a big one. What about your mercury fillings, mercury-filled fillings in your teeth? What about parasites? This is gross stuff to talk about. When you go to like integrative doctors, naturopaths, functional medicine doctors that are looking at the whole picture, a parasite could trigger it for you. Could be candida. It could be a virus. It could be a bacteria. It could be a virus. How many have told me that they've had herpes? They've had the whole kissing disease when they were teenagers. What a coincidence! Well, now we find out one of the most common causes of Hashimoto's is infections of different types of bacteria and viral infections and parasites and candida. Other things like LDN, low dose naltrexone. It was, used for alcohol addiction. And then they discovered that if you take a really small dose of it, it can actually modulate the immune system. Have you heard of it? Has your doctor even mentioned it? No. Do a Google search, low dose naltrexone. I'm not saying everybody needs to go on low dose naltrexone, but you gotta at least know these options are out there. Or what about acupuncture and Chinese medicine? My menstrual cycles were totally off. There was no way I was getting pregnant. My sex hormones were all up. My cycles were crazy. And then I went for acupuncture and Chinese medicine before my eyes. I'm so scientific, I plotted. I knew my ovulation, my luteal phase. I'm telling you, acupuncture and Chinese medicine changed my cycles. Meditation. What about placental encapsulation for postpartum women? You know how hard it was to get that in my book? Because, people think, oh, you got to eat your placenta. God, that's kind of gross. And there's a lot of discussion about should it be included. And then I'm like, no, it has to be. It has to be. It helps a lot of people. It's been done in history. Midwives have done it, and yet mainstream doctors never talk about it. But what about if that could help a lot of people avoid postpartum depression and those dives? Our sex hormones dive in postpartum. Remember, sex hormones and thyroid and adrenals are all together. Your sleepless nights, your sex hormones are diving. How can we not feel like crap in postpartum as a thyroid person? So, open it up to the final questions.
Okay. So there's one here from Candy. I have ovarian cysts, and my gynecologist, who also has Hashimoto's disease, prescribed low-dose oral contraceptives from 1 to 3 months. I have been taking them for a week and a half, and I feel terrible. I take 100 mcgs of Synthroid. How much do the contraceptives interfere with the thyroid medication, and how detrimental is this to my health?
I have an article on my site about contraceptives. I even haven't, the article even includes that could it actually trigger your hypothyroidism. The question in the article is, did you develop your hypothyroidism when you started your birth control method? I'd be so careful. I realized it, and I remember when I posted it, I got so many things of but then how are we going to protect ourselves? And, and yeah, I know it's just such a loaded thing because you don't necessarily want to get pregnant. So you want a method to protect yourself. But I do think you have to be really careful. I was on birth control because my cycles were so crazy and very painful. And hey, let me tell you, painful, heavy, hard PMS, menstrual cycles, those are a symptom of hypothyroidism. Instead of my doctors as a teenager, I was I felt like I had to go to the emergency room. And as a teenager, no one thought, go check that girl's thyroid. No, put her on birth control. Put her on birth control instead. So I was on birth control for 10 years. And I remember my symptoms worsening during that time. So I can't, I think we're all so different, but definitely be careful. And I guess it depends on what's the reason you're taking it. Is there an alternative?
Another one from. Oh, unmute yourself. Can't hear you.
Did you read the one from Candy just now? It's a little confusing.
There's one from Candy, yeah, that we just did, yeah.
Okay. So many questions.
Did you have one, Fabienne? Did you find one?
No, not. There's a lot of stories that are being.
There's one about, I found
love your energy, Dana. They're sharing with us how they love your information and your energy. Yes.
And they're like, you're just awesome.
Oh, Oh God.
There's one about libido. Did you see the one from Roxy? So what about non-existent libido? I was only 50 when mine disappeared. I am married, always had a great sex life before, but it's rapidly disappeared. I'm 60 now and I'm missing it.
What a
Yeah.
loaded question. It's so, it's such, it's so demoralizing. It so sucks your spirit. It sucks your spirit, right? I've had these issues, and then it can come with pain. I've experienced the painful intercourse and vaginal dryness, and I'm telling you, you know, you get told you're crazy. It's all you. It's all you. You know, therapist, it's all you.
Or you feel like you're wrong for not being like in touch with your husband, you know, like you just are like, why don't I feel like I want to have sex with him? Or, you know, I mean, I've been there too, like the whole thing.
I think, you know, and I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna see how far down in Hypothyroid Mom, because I want her to read it, because I had Dr. Jolene Brighton write an article, and in fact, it's the first one. If you go to Hypothyroid Mom, it's 9 ways to revive your libido with hypothyroidism, and she gives, as a naturopath, she gives recommendations of what you can do. And you know, optimal thyroid treatment may not be enough, and even when you do some of these things, it may not, you know, necessarily like improve it. Like it might improve it, but like what I mean is like you might still have that issue. And I think one of the most important things is like not to blame yourself, not to blame yourself, because it's like a spiral of you blame yourself. There's got to be something wrong with me, and then you got all the other stuff of like the fatigue and the brain fog and anxiety, and it's just something wrong with me. I'm not. If that's a like a really serious one, because I hear from plenty that are getting divorced and separated right now because of that very topic. And in fact, when I posted that article, there were very few shares on social media, likes on my Facebook page. But the number of comments, the personal, like the private ones that came in, you don't even want to know how many. Now, they're not willing to like it on Facebook, let family and friends see, but the, like, it's like, you know. I hope she'll read that article, though. 9 ways to revive your libido with hypothyroidism. Dr. Jolene Brighton, she's fabulous.
She is amazing. We love her, too.
Yeah, I love her.
We have a few minutes left, so maybe we'll take one more question, and then we'll share with everyone just what to look out for on the YouTube channel.
We have one more question, and it's a very broad question, but we'll try to answer in another. Do you know about Lyme disease being the root cause of Hashimoto's? That seems to be my road, but no one talks much about it.
Absolutely. I've been fascinated by infections in general. I've been very fascinated. I hear from plenty that have Lyme, but I also have plenty that have other forms of infections, and I can't help but wonder about them. Things like even parasites, like who's doing a stool test? You know, first of all, it's a disgusting test. I know, it's disgusting. I hated doing it, but I'm so happy I did. I discovered I had severe candida. Guess what? I had severe candida, right? I went into perimenopause. At 42 years old, very sudden, my cycles went from 29 days to 25, you know, and the perimenopause symptoms started. Guess what? I had candida. By taking herbs to clear my candida, my cycles regulated. Just by taking herbs. There was candida in my gut, but had I not taken the stool test, I wouldn't have known. So I would say to that is, you know, part of Hashimoto's testing is beyond the 6 tests. It's the nutrient deficiencies. It's the whole slew of various infections that have been shown. The research is building, and the doctors are coming out to say, you know what, I'm finding all these infections, all these different types of infections I love, that's a very interesting topic to me. It's very interesting. It's really interesting. And I would wonder how many people have Lyme because they don't get tested. So how do they know? Like, I didn't know I had Candida. I'm 47. This started at 42. Probably had Candida for 5 years. And then boom, Candida herbs cleared me. My cycles are back to 28, 29. My hair came back. I mean, really like something so simple. But you often have to go outside of mainstream medicine because that's not done there. Stool testing isn't going to be done there. So you've got to go to more like, open-minded types of doctors. Now, I have met some MDs that are fantastic too. I shouldn't say that because I've also met endocrinologists, various ones that do the full testing. So I shouldn't say that because I think that it isn't so much the type of medicine that they're in as much as their mindset about it.
We are at 8 o'clock, so we do want to start to share with them other things. Dana, thank you so much for all of this plethora of information that you brought all of us tonight.
I'm so excited. This was so fun.
Oh my gosh. We have so many comments from you, like Fabienne said, that are just like,
Thanks for having me,
we will
everybody.
send them to you. And thank you for all of you for attending the webinar. And
So exciting.
give us some feedback. HA is a nonprofit organization that relies entirely on donation from supporters like you. So if you like our mission and you like our webinar and want to see more of that, please visit our website and make a donation today.
Yeah, and also you guys, today's webinar, you're going to receive a survey right at the end, and we would love it if you could just take a few minutes and fill that out for us, just because we want to make sure that you're getting what you want as well out of all of these in your experience, and we want to continue to bring you the webinars that you love. So what's so exciting is that you're also going to receive a follow-up email within 24 to 48 hours with a link to view this recording. And at any time. You have 24 hours access on our YouTube channel, and it'll be there for you forever. So thanks again, and we love all of you, and take care of yourselves.
And we'll see you in March, and keep in touch for the details. Dana, we love you. Thank you.
We love you, Dana. Thank you so much.
Thyroid powder.